Hi, my name is Shannon. I'm a trainer and behavioral consultant, and today we're going to be going over some dog training questions. I have a collection of real questions from clients and from email submissions about overall problem behaviors. I'm going to try to keep everything as short and practical and sweet as possible, but just as a disclaimer, of course, every dog is very different, every situation is different, every dog has their own personality and environment. There's so many nuanced things that can change the answer case by case. So I'm going to answer based off of the amount of information I'm given, but of course, this can vary. First question is from Stacy. It says, "Hi Shannon, I have Luna, a 2-year-old lab mix. Luna jumps on every single guest, and even my grandma got knocked over last week. I say off and I push her down, but she just comes right back up. We try giving treats for sitting, but she is so excited, she won't even sit sometimes. Any tips that I can try ASAP?" Essentially, jumping continues to happen due to like a term I like to use called behavioral rehearsal. So, meaning that each time the dog is presented with that trigger, they have the ability and the availability to continue to rehearse that behavior each time. And that is why it's continuing. One big thing that I will always tell clients is that you really need to stop allowing it at any capacity. So, this means that if your dog is able to get to that person in the first place and jump on them, you're going to end up in this constant cycle where the jumping is never going to get better. So when anybody comes in the house, so a guest, your grandma, anybody, we need to put Luna behind a gate first and work on those kind of alternative behaviors there. So work on sit, work on rewarding eye contact, work on rewarding calm behaviors. But that needs to be done separated from that guest first. So meaning that they can't get to them in the first place. Once we have your dog separated from that trigger and we have now worked on more calm behaviors, we can then try some form of like a on leash introduction. So meaning we'll put Luna on leash, work her way up closer to the guest, work her way up closer to grandma, and work on that same stuff, rewarding for the sits, rewarding for calm behavior, and not moving forward until we see that Luna is a little bit more relaxed. And then we can always teach some sort of, like controlled release, like a go say hi, or something that indicates that now your dog can go up to that person and say hi. If they jump, it just means that we move too quick and we need to slow that whole process down more. If they don't jump, we're good to go. We'll allow Luna to say hi for as long as she wants to, maybe call her back to you to check back in, maybe send her to her bed. Can be really more options from there, but that's really what I would start with. Next question is that my 1-year-old corgi, Jax, will sometimes come when called in the yard, but not at the dog park. He runs the second that he hears my voice, so meaning he runs away from the owner. I tried it to practice on longer leashes. I've tried recall games, but he ignores me if another dog is around. How do I make recall work when there are distractions? A lot of the times I like to explain like there's different levels of distractions. You practice in your house and there's 0 distractions. That's baseline, that's level 0. So now your dog does know how to come back when called, but only if there's 0 distractions. If you jump straight to going to the dog park and having another dog around, and trialing out the same exercises that you were doing before, you're simply moving too fast. We have to practice very slowly, incrementally, bringing in more distractions little by little. You want to practice with just like kind of one single trigger at a time. So, meaning maybe just a dog or just at the park with the long lead. You don't want to just suddenly jump to the dog being off lead at the park with dogs around and smells and cars going by. That's just too many distractions at once. Practice with small distractions first and build your way back up. Okay, this question from Sophie. We adopted a 3-year-old small terrier. She growls and snaps if my partner tries to take her bowl or toy away. It's mild, but it worries us. We tried taking things away calmly and giving them back, but she still stiffens. How do we stop the guarding without making it worse? Okay, resource guarding is obviously a really common problem, and a lot of dogs face it, whether it's with the dogs or with people. There's, of course, like so much evaluation to be done if a dog is struggling with resource guarding, but I would say the number one thing that I don't see people do that really does help is some form of like desensitizing and counter conditioning towards you moving closer to their objects and their food and things like that. For example, this dog is growling and barking if we try to take her bowl or a toy away. You would figure out her threshold, so meaning when you start to approach her, when does she start to stiffen? When do you start to see some uncomfortable signs? So let's say it's from about 6 feet away. You would walk about 6 feet away from that dog while they're eating, toss a treat, walk away. Walk about 6 feet up, toss a treat, walk away. If she's stiffening each time you're at 6 feet, it means you're too close. Take another foot backwards, go at 7 feet, and do that over and over again. So you're approaching, tossing a treat, and walking away. Approaching, tossing a treat, and walking away. What you're doing here is you're helping condition that idea in her head that you approaching is a good thing, not a bad thing. Right now, if you are approaching and you're like maybe taking her things away, she's most likely conditioning her brain to think, okay, mom approaches, that's going to be bad. If mom approaches, she's going to take my things away. So we're trying to reverse and counter condition that thought to be a little bit more positive. There's obviously more to look into that, but that's probably more of the like textbook answer there. Okay. Riley, our 4-year-old pit mix, loses his mind on walks when he sees other dogs, lunging, barking, and dragging me. I have tried a prong and choke collars before after I got some advice from a friend, and it seemed to make it worse. What are some humane steps to work on leash reactivity and maybe help keep us both safe? Some of these moments tend to scare me and make me feel like he could take me down or hurt somebody else if put in the wrong situation. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very valid. Of course, reactivity can be very scary and it is a very complex issue that does require a lot of evaluation. And again, depends case by case. But really, in general, like you kind of pointing out already, that maybe some of the aversives kind of made some things worse is definitely very common too. You know, your dog already feels negative about that trigger. When you're trying to overcorrect or you're trying to like let's say pull the dog backwards even, you're adding tension to that situation. But what we have to start incorporating in is some form of positive reinforcement and a lot of reward based training, ideally at a much further distance from other dogs. I usually tell clients that if you, let's say, go to a park and you go about 100 to 200 to 300 feet away from other dogs, bring treats with you, we'll start there. Can your dog check back in with you and take reward? Just kind of have to test that threshold first. If they can, we move on to actual leash reactivity exercises like the engage and disengage, or maybe you'll look at that exercise. I can always link some of those in the description below too. But something along those lines would be a really good place to start. Okay, my older dog, Max, has started jumping on the kitchen counters mostly when my kids are around. It's probably because my kids keep leaving food on the counters when they walk away, and he is continuing to try to find those scraps. Any advice on how exactly to combat this? Dogs will do whatever continues to get reinforced. Counter surfing is a really big example of this. Of course, I could talk all day about other examples, but for counter surfing, let's say your dog one time jumped up on the counter, no matter what age they are, and they were able to get some form of reinforcement out of it. So, meaning they jumped on the counter and they were able to grab a really good treat. Now, that behavior of jumping on the counter did get very highly and strongly reinforced. I would temporarily put up barriers around the kitchen and around the counter so that the dog can't continue the behavioral rehearsal and then go from there. All right, next question is that I want to stop my dog Oscar from barking at the mail carrier every day. We shout no, and we have also tried spraying water through a spray bottle, but it's inconsistent. Is there a protocol that I can try to follow that actually reduces the barking and hopefully the stress? Think of it this way too, like each time that your dog, so let's say Oscar is barking at the mail guy, what is happening next? Oscar barks at the mail guy. What does the mail guy do? The mail guy usually leaves because he has dropped off your mail and he is moving on to the next house. You have to realize that Oscar is technically getting reinforced each time that that behavior happens because it accomplishes something. He protected your house, he scared off the scary trigger, so that behavior rehearsal continues because it got reinforced in some way. I would definitely first try management. So I would consider putting curtains up. I would block your dog's view of the mail carrier. Try to figure out what time they come every day. Make sure that your dog is put up in a space where they can't reach the window and have that availability to bark at them first so that we can break that behavioral rehearsal. Once we have broken that behavioral rehearsal, we work on things like some conditioning, desensitizing, noise desensitization. You can also work on redirecting your dog to a go to your bed and stay. There's other options, but really, first line of defense is to go ahead and find a way to break that rehearsal by continuing to allow them to sit and perch out the window and stare at the mailman each time they come by. My pup Luna, who is now about 14 weeks, is obsessed with picking things up when outside. She will now wait until we turn our back and she will snatch that item as quick as she can. We have tried literally everything that you can find online. We have tried Leave It. We have tried exercises. We have tried everything. She's putting everything in all caps. She is just very lightning fast. How exactly do we find a solution to this? Yeah, let's say like in reality you have tried everything. There is one thing I didn't see in here that could be an option, and that would be to consider muzzle training. And so muzzle training could be a really great option for a dog who seemingly is like obsessed with like putting things in their mouth at all times. It is definitely something that could be considered a bit of a short-term solution as you work on these alternative behaviors like eye contact and focus back up. Of course, there's so many things that you can try before muzzle training, but again, if it feels like you have done everything, then muzzle training might be a good next step for you. You want to really properly desensitize a muzzle and do it in a really positive fashion. I'll include a link below too that revolves around the Muzzle Up project. It's a great foundation that kind of covers learning materials as well as just covers overall exercises on how to get your dog muzzle trained. So, highly recommend looking into that if that feels like a good next step for you guys. Okay, last question. Our rescue Pepper, who is exactly 4 years old, freezes and tries to bolt when strangers try to reach for her and say hi to her. We're trying to get her used to this. Do you have any advice on how to move forward? Without evaluating the dog themselves, I would just say, like, understand the dog's boundaries a little bit. If, let's say, you have a rescue and who knows what their history really is with people reaching for them and what their relationships with humans look like before, there could be still a lot of trauma and a lot of negative associations with those movements of hands coming towards them or just being touched. You have to work on some gradual desensitization and some counter conditioning to get them more comfortable with that process. Some dogs just really need to work small. So, meaning first work on maybe teaching a touch cue, which means that the dog would come boop their nose to your hand. Maybe teach them a little bit of a shake to kind of help get a little bit of human touch that way. But keep it really short and sweet. You don't want to keep like pushing your dog over their limits and pushing them over their comfort zone because that's where you can just end up, unfortunately, in this vicious cycle if you keep going over threshold with that. Chance finally decided to say hi. Hi, buddy. Okay, that is all we have time for today. I hope you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But thank you for watching.